Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. India is holding its 7-phase general elections. Votes will be counted and results will be declared on the 4th of June 2024. That's exactly 3 weeks from today. Voting is over in 70% of the seats. Today we're looking at what the impact of the June 4th results could be on the reforms and the markets. We have 6 scenarios that we'll be talking up, and we will be taking up one by one based on the 6 different possible results for the BJP and the India alliance. So first, let me begin by introducing my guests for the show today. Joining us to discuss this are Subhomoy Bhattacharjee, Banuchandar Nagarajan, and of course my colleagues Kartik Malhotra and Kartikeya Sharma in the News9 Plus studio. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. I want to start straight away by talking of scenario number 1. These scenarios, bear in mind, are 6. They start from a resounding majority for the BJP, that's 400 par for the BJP, going down to scenario number 6, which is a change in the government. So scenario number 1, 363 seats for the BJP, 400 seats for the NDA. Kartik, what's your take on this? What happens if with such a landslide majority? What does it mean for the markets? What does it mean for the reform process for a third term of the Modi government?
So if you asked me about a month before, Sandeep, I
Yes.
would have said that markets are already pricing in, maybe
Right.
not a 400 tally, but the markets are pricing in anything between a 380 to a 400.
Right.
Today, the situation seems a little different.
Right.
I don't think with the voter turnout and with the overall scenario which has played out in the phases which have been completed thus
Right.
far, and the speeches that we have heard from
Yeah.
political leaders across the board, markets today are not pricing in a resounding victory for the NDA. Right. But a victory, however, is
Yes.
priced in. And this
Right.
is also indicative in the VIX index. If you look at
Yes.
that, you see that the volatility has actually only increased.
Right.
Now, what it means, to answer
Yes.
your pointed question, if the BJP was to come to power with 360 plus seats and
Yes.
the NDA with about 400 odd seats, obviously this is great news for the market,
Right.
because this is going to be better than what the markets are expecting,
Right.
which means you will see an upside on the 4th of June, and that rally is likely to continue for a few days for sure.
Right.
It means the reform process is going to continue.
Yes.
It means there is going to be more inflow of capital into India expectedly.
Right.
And that is going to be good news even for the Indian rupee.
Good news for the Indian rupee, but is it good news for the BJP so far, Kartikeya? Does it look like a possibility at all, 400 par for the NDA?
You see, I'll differ from Kartik on one point. Modi, unlike Manmohan Singh and Vajpayee, is not a reformist prime minister.
Right.
In fact, what he has done is rationalize and streamline all the government schemes.
Right. The
That's where-
existing schemes. He's made
exists.
them more
That's where the
efficient.
credit goes.
Right.
I don't think he has done leap of faith economics like
Right.
Narasimha Rao did,
Yep.
or Vajpayee did, or selling of state assets,
Yes.
or Manmohan Singh did,
Right.
the US nuclear deal. So he is slightly different. What he gets to do with the 360 plus, first
Yes.
scenario is Prime Minister Modi, and let me say this is not on the lighter side, will get to choose his successor.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
He will get to choose a successor
Right.
if he gets this number of seats.
Right.
Second, he will complete his term.
Right.
Third,
A full 5-year term.
Full 5 year.
Right.
Third, it will allow him,
Yes.
though in the debate, BJP has been saying that the constitutional issues are out of
Right.
policy purview, but there is a section within RSS BJP Parivar which feels that the constitutional should be restored to its original entity.
Right.
So it is not an amendment, it is restoring the constitution to its original
To
entity.
what it was before the 70s.
which Mrs. Indira
Yes.
Gandhi during emergency amended.
The socialism and secularism.
Absolutely.
You're talking of those two
absolutely.
words. Yes.
Those were the two words.
Right.
So it will create that mandate for him.
It will create a mandate.
That is why
Yes.
after 2019
Right.
and not in 2014, they did away with 370.
Absolutely, that was a big thing. And would the BJP be able to do this? Subhomoy, does it look increasingly likely a 400 par verdict for the NDA and indeed 370 plus for the BJP, given the way things stand today?
Sandeep, what I would think is that investors actually wouldn't be very very enthusiastic about this difference between 370, 400 or 275 or so.
Right, right.
Why? Because you want almost anything that the government wants to do.
Right.
It basically needs a simple majority in the parliament,
Yes.
in the Lok Sabha, to get it done.
Right.
That's about it. Rest is just simply, sort of, headlines.
Right.
The stock markets also, I don't think is that, surprised enough to say
Yes.
that we would need something like 400. I mean, what do you do? Anything that you want to do, you can do with 272 plus.
Right.
So
So it doesn't
we
matter.
need-
It's just numbers then you're saying. It doesn't matter what numbers they
It's
come
just
back with,
numbers.
as long as they have a
Exactly.
majority. Banuchandar, yesterday we had the near unprecedented scenario of both Foreign Minister Jaishankar and Home Minister Amit Shah reassuring the markets that all is going to be well, all is well, and the BJP is going to come back to power. Any reason why they had to say this? Is it because of the volatility that Kartik spoke of? The markets have been pretty volatile because it doesn't look like there's going to be a 400 plus verdict. It might be a victory for the BJP, but unlikely the numbers that are being suggested, 400 plus, or was indicated earlier on.
See, I think the market goes up and down based on information. When Ben Graham said that the market is a voting machine in the short run, but a weighing machine in the long run. Right? So I think, probably some journalists would have asked about the attitude of the market and related it with the elections, and both the External Affairs Minister, the Home Minister had to reassure. Like what the previous speaker was saying, it absolutely doesn't matter for the market whether it's a simple majority or a special majority, which is 2/3. Like what Kartikeya is saying, if you have 2/3, you can do constitutional amendments, etc. But I don't think it has any extra effect on the market.
Right. It won't have an extra impact on the market. So, which means that scenario 1 and 2 are very similar to each other. That scenario 2, in fact, says that it's 303 seats for the BJP, 363 seats as it existed in the present parliament.
We are conflating the confidence of market
Yeah.
with a strong majority.
Yes.
I don't think strong majorities have been sympathetic towards Indian capital.
Right.
Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru had strong majorities.
Yes.
I don't think the people in Mumbai or then Bombay doing
Right.
business were pretty happy with the policies.
Right.
Prime ministers with fragile majorities or incomplete number in parliament did pretty well.
Yes.
Narasimha Rao, Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh.
They
So
led coalition
to
governments,
conflate
yes.
majority with investor confidence, I am not too keen. It helps the political sentiment. You know,
Yes.
it tells you, we can take all the tough decisions.
Right.
We can take tough choices. You can take a tough choice by getting people together.
Right.
The issue is, are you making a tough choice unilaterally, like demonetization, or is it going to be a tough choice like US deal, which Manmohan Singh did,
Yes.
by ensuring that everyone is on the board?
Right.
But those are political things. But 400
Right.
doesn't mean anything. And the
Right.
best example is that of Rajiv Gandhi.
Yes.
2 years,
Right.
Two
The first
years.
2 years.
and there was no government.
84, 86, and then
That's it. After
87
87,
it was downhill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, but that was the first term, the only Rajiv Gandhi term. And here you're looking at a 3-term, possibly a 3rd term for Prime Minister Modi. And that brings me to scenario 3 and 4, where scenario 3 talks of a slight majority government, which is a simple majority. The BJP getting 273 seats, just above 272. And the second scenario is scenario 4, which is where the NDA gets 272 seats, but the BJP falls below 230 seats, where the BJP is the largest party, but it's leading a coalition that crosses 272 seats. What would be the market sentiment in such a scenario, Kartik?
So, Sandeep, you use the right term, sentiment.
Right.
Often, hard data is very different from sentiments. And
Right.
markets, whether we like it or not,
Yeah.
actually move on sentiments.
Right.
Even if you talk about the volatility right now, what is the volatility? The volatility actually emerges from how options traders are looking at the market 30 days from now.
Right.
So 30 days from now, you're pretty much taking a wild guess on what scenario is likely to play out.
Yes.
And you're hedging your bets today on
Right.
the basis of that likelihood or that likely scenario to play out. Now, scenario 3 and scenario 4, which you've
Yes.
drawn out, to my mind, the sentiment of the markets in scenario 4
Yes.
get negatively impacted
Right.
because you really don't know which is going to be your prime minister for the next 5 years.
Right.
You don't know what is really going to unfold going forward. And
Right.
markets don't like surprises.
Right.
Markets are okay with bad news.
Yes.
Markets will digest bad news and process them in their own way. They
Right.
will tank for a while, they will come back to their
Yes.
real, investor-led positions. But the
Right.
point is, markets don't like surprises. And scenario 4, to my mind,
Yes.
is going to be a bit of a surprise for the market.
Would be a surprise for the market. Coalition government led by the BJP.
You see, what is the narrative right now? What is the narrative? The BJP's narrative is ab ki baar 400 par,
Yes.
maybe 370. But the thing which I have absorbed by talking to people is, it's not that the people don't want Bharatiya Janata Party to come back to power.
Right.
But they don't want Bharatiya Janata Party to come back to power with huge
With a brute majority.
Brute majority. I would say
Right.
that is the sentiment right now,
Yes.
maybe the counter narrative to Bharatiya Janata
Right.
Party. One narrative amongst many narratives in this country.
Yes.
So it means that there is a thinking that he should get a majority,
Yes.
but not a brute majority which can be enforced. So let me
Right.
give you food for the thought.
Right.
If market is an entity,
Yes.
would market appreciate an entity where a market would have a say?
Right.
You see, what was working in earlier dispensations for 15, 20 years,
Yes.
they had a say.
There was
you
a
see,
talk
in
back.
a way,
Right.
in a way, you cannot affect policy making in
Yes.
Modi administration, which is
Right.
perfect, which is good.
Yes.
Because ultimately, the PM decides. But it also does away with a lot of says.
Right. Absolutely. Does away with a lot of
Kartikeya,
says.
my quarrel with that argument is that who is the market? The market at the end of the day is the investor.
Yes.
Domestic investor, global investor, institutional investor, retail investor. These people, in any case, don't have a say in how business should be done. And that is what the corporates
And I'm going to ask
actually
Subhomoy.
do.
Subhomoy, this scenario 4 is a modest coalition where the BJP is the single largest party. It doesn't get a majority on its own. It's got about 230 seats. The NDA, of course, crosses the 272 figure. How will India Inc., how will the markets react to such a scenario where the BJP is in power but doesn't have its numbers? It doesn't have that simple majority. It's not 2014, it's not 2019.
See, Sandeep, first of all, if voters can't organize elections, in the
Right.
sense, I was going by what Kartikeya was saying, if most voters think that BJP is good to return, then BJP will return with a very huge majority.
Right.
Because in the marginal in the first past the post system,
Yes.
if there's only 40% saying हाँ वही आ जाए, so then
Right.
that's enough. Then that'll mean out of 370, 80 seats, they'll be with a massive majority. So
Right.
there's no way that thing will not happen. If most people actually think that is what it should happen.
Right.
Because you cannot say that I'll ensure that यहाँ तक होगा, यहाँ तक नहीं होगा. Voting doesn't happen that way.
Right.
The second part is, if Mr. Modi, first, second, third, fourth, of all the four things, every position says that Mr. Modi will be the Prime Minister.
Yes.
And Mr. Modi is coming in for the third term. This is his most significant terms in terms of what you might call leaving an imprint on the Indian polity for God knows
Absolutely.
how many.
Getting to choose a successor, as Kartikeya said.
So he has to go for, as they say, hell for leather. For
Hell for leather.
everything.
Right.
Labor, capital, labor reforms, land
Yes.
reform, every other power reforms, he
Right.
will have to do. What has he got to lose?
Right.
He will, whichever term he comes to power with, if he is
Right.
the person in power, he knows what is the prescription that he has to follow.
Right.
And in that prescription, I don't think the Prime Minister can say this time that
Right.
I was hemmed in by, this problem or that problem. He
Yes.
has to deliver. And that is what markets, India Inc., and everybody will be saying.
Right.
You've got the third term. The numbers don't matter. You're the Prime Minister.
Yes.
We know you can divert, you can deliver. You have to deliver.
You have to
And
deliver.
But
You're
you know,
the man.
Sandeep,
Yes.
but you know,
Yes,
Sandeep,
Kartikeya.
that's the point I was trying
Yeah.
to make. A simple majority is a simple majority is a simple majority.
Right.
Whether he gets 272, 372,
On his
350 or
own.
280, it doesn't make a difference.
Right.
You got a simple majority. History doesn't remember. History will only remember that Modi has come to power for the third time.
Yes.
But you don't require 3/4 of majority for labor and land reform. That's the
Right.
point I was trying to
Right.
make.
Exactly.
With the simple majority, those reforms did not happen because he was
Yes.
very mindful of the charges against him.
Right.
When the suit boot
Suit
ki sarkar,
suit
the JT
boot ki
said
sarkar.
suitcase ki
That's
sarkar.
right.
So that's what I'm saying, that
Yes.
one has to wait and see whether that mindset is going to change or not, because he is different from Vajpayee.
Right. So he's different from Vajpayee indeed, but how would Prime Minister Modi run a coalition? And that's scenario number 5. Banuchandar, I'll come to you for scenario number 5, which is the NDA, which gets less than 250 seats. This is a scenario, bear in mind. NDA with less than 250 seats it needs NDA plus. It needs other political parties to form a government. The BJP gets less than 200 seats in this scenario. The NDA gets 250 seats. What will be the impact on reforms when the electorate knows, when the market knows that there are going to be multiple contenders for the Prime Minister? It's quite possible, it's in the realm of possibility that the coalition partners will have a say in choosing the Prime Minister. And what will be the scenario in this case, Banuchandar? A weak coalition minority government.
It is near impossible scenario, Sandeep. We might as well discuss about other low probability events like the next solar flare or the next pandemic and so on. Right? So,
This is Banu.
This
is Banu.
Solar flares, right. Okay.
So the thing is, we will talk about a reasonable situation where the previous scenario is probably the worst case scenario for the BJP. In that, I think the government is anyway going to come to execute its welfare program. Say now there are additional programs like PM Surya Ghar or the water supply program, so on and so forth, right? But I think we should remember that the market is a part of the society. They are not decoupled, right? And lot of things depends on the long-term reforms. For long-term reforms, you need a decent majority. Whether they are able to do civil services reform or like do the civil code or do the delimitation. These will have longer-term impacts on the market. So I think we need to keep that in mind. One last point is, we sometimes forget the macro picture. We are living in the era of war and technology. I think that is going to dominate the next 5 years. How that plays into what government we choose is something that we have to wait and see.
Kartik, ab ki baar 1 lakh par for the markets if a weak coalition government takes over?
I doubt it. I mean, in scenario 5, see, at the end of the day, I think you will still have to look at the fundamentals of companies. So the decision making for investors will not be as much about sunrise sectors, about investment sectors, because you don't know whether the government is actually going to complete its 5 years or not. Right. So they will not really look for themes which are linked to the government, but they will look at the fundamental value within companies that they are buying. So this is going to be one fundamental change in the way trading is going to happen. I think more importantly, the investors are going to, and this is both global and domestic investors, institutional and retail investors, are actually going to look at other triggers from outside India which could influence money coming in or going out of India. So China will become a major trigger. US rate cut, rate hike, in any case impacts markets slightly. But I think all these external factors are going to become bigger triggers to move the market either north or south.
Move the market north or south. And this is in the unlikely eventuality, as my panelist was saying, of a weak coalition taking over, a weak NDA taking over. But what are what's your assessment, Kartikeya? Extremely unlikely, probable, possible?
I don't think that BJP will go for anything which we are calling NDA plus. I think that is unlikely. And we have an example, we have a history. In 1990, Rajiv Gandhi chose to sit in opposition with 191 MPs. He could have broken the opposition parties, or he could have, at that point of time, he could have still gone to the president. Because that Bombay judgment has not happened by that time. So he could have done that, but he didn't do that. I think in the probability list, if you ask me, it's probably the third and the second to me, which seems within the probability list. That can happen to Bharatiya Janata Party because certain states are not clear. And in defense of the scenario, like where is the debate happening? The debate is happening in Telangana. The debate has happened in Karnataka because of this Ravenna crisis. LG Ravenna is out. There's a debate which is happening in Maharashtra. The hair-splitting arguments, 3 versus 3 has happened. Then, there is the election in Rajasthan is on the caste line. So there is a bit of a problem there.
They could lose seats there.
Election in Odisha and West Bengal is again, with the Sandesh Khali twist, it has become slightly different. So I'm not saying that the BJP is doing badly, but I'm saying as a journalist, I don't have an AI to tell you that, they have 350 seats. But I can definitely tell you that in this election, by the third phase, a fight is being witnessed.
There is some semblance of a fight, which wasn't there a month ago.
Opposition can lose all the fronts. That can happen. They can lose all the front. They can give up a good fight and lose. But maybe it might throw up surprises. Like Jyotiraditya Scindia
surprises.
Jyotiraditya Scindia losing Guna in 2019.
Who would have thought?
Ashok Chavan losing his constituency.
So
Rahul Gandhi losing Amethi.
So
wasn't it a surprise?
Surprises, Kartikeya, the last scenario, the Black Swan event. And in the alliance, Subhomoy.
You should ask Banu. He's the one who's saying it.
Subhomoy is rooting for scenario 6. And in the alliance, winning with 272 seats, a simple majority. The BJP going below 200 seats.
I think this is daydream.
A solar flare, as Banuchandar would say. But
solar flare.
Subhomoy, what is the probability of this happening, and what would be the impact? Would it be another 2004 kind of impact on the markets, on investor sentiment, where there was literally a crash on the day of the election results?
No, Sandeep, it's this way. Congress is just fighting 250 seats.
Yes.
Of 250 seats, to win 170, 180.
Right.
I mean, if it is that sort of a wave behind it,
Yes.
I mean, this is like crazy. They
Right.
even their own, it's obvious that even their own party in-house managers don't think that they've got any chance beyond 30%, 40%. I mean,
Right.
that's the best strike rate that you have.
Right.
So the numbers, they themselves have shut down that possibility.
Right.
So in 2004, they were fighting in about 380 seats or
Yes.
so, rather, in fact, about 400 or so, I think. But this time they're fighting just 250 seats. I mean,
Right.
like, they themselves don't think that they've got enough to be anywhere near majority except as a spoiler.
Right.
So that's where the election day
Extremely
of the election
unlikely.
lies.
Yes. Banuchandar, are you going to talk about solar flares, or you want to talk about scenario 6?
No, one quick point, Sandeep, which is that, see, India, we have to look at the fundamental picture of India. We have
Yes.
a very strong economy already. We are a $4 trillion
Right.
economy. Our demographics is in the right position, and we are a free, open society. Okay, all of this will be very palatable for investors. Okay,
Yes.
I mean, this doomsday scenario apart, I think even during this unstable coalition years, we had
Right.
the stock market was doing very well.
Yes.
Perhaps the finance expert there will agree with me.
Yeah.
From 2004 to 7, I think it doubled. I might be, I may not be 100% correct. So
Right.
we should believe in the fundamental story of Indian democracy and Indian polity. I think investors will always find that.
Investors will always find value, Kartik, but this scenario 6 is very interesting. It's got everyone very excited. It's back to 2004. What's the probability of that
I
happening?
mean, probability, honestly, I don't know. I'm not a psephologist, so I really wouldn't be able to comment on the probability. But, I can tell you what, foreign analysts have spoken on this
Yes.
subject earlier. And
Right.
even some real Indian bulls right now,
Yes.
are of the opinion that in case, in that Black Swan event, as you
Yes.
mentioned, of, the BJP not coming to power in any form,
Right.
the markets are going to see not exactly a correction, but they're actually going to tank.
Right.
But market is going to tank only for a very, very brief period of time.
As it did
and
in
that is exactly
2004.
what Bhanu, I think, is also
Yes.
trying to say, that the fundamentals of the economy are strong enough
Yes.
that eventually stocks will find their real value and
Right.
investors will get an opportunity to bargain buy. But, on the note that Amit Shah, Home Minister Amit Shah mentioned yesterday,
Yes.
that this is the right time to buy stocks and there
Absolutely.
is going to be an upside after 4th of June.
Yes.
This, incidentally, is contrary to what most market analysts and market watchers are saying right now.
Right.
They're saying this is not the time to buy on dips.
Right.
And this is perhaps the time to hold on and maybe make your investment closer to knowing which side the polls are actually headed.
Which side the polls are headed, and that's all we have time for this evening. But thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me this evening. And I'd like to say that today is the 14th of May. The results are exactly 3 weeks from now. I'm going to come back to you. Lock your calendars, lock the date. 3 weeks from now, we'll have another round, and we'll see which scenario won and who was right, who was the psephologist among us who pulled the right choices, and whether it was scenario 1, 2, 3, 4 or Kartikeya's favorite 6. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. The only wave in these elections, it seems, is the heat wave. In fact, the stifling heat seems to be one big factor for low voting percentages. It's affected voter turnout. Not to mention the fact that 37% of Indian citizens, or around 500 million people, are migrants who would encounter physical or financial hardships returning home to vote. Could online voting then be the answer? To talk about this, I'm joined by Pradeep Bhandari, psephologist and founder Jan Ki Baat, and my colleague Aditya Kaul here in the studio at News9 Plus. Mr. Bhandari, welcome to the News9 Plus Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
I want to start by asking you why has the Election Commission of India not begun remote voting already? Why is it not possible to vote from home or vote remotely? Why must we all queue up in election booths, 7 phases over 2 months, heat, dust, all of that?
The lot of analysts and experts look at the concept which is called as the transaction cost to do any activity. So those who are against the concept of online voting basically advocate that in an exercise, in the biggest democratic exercise, and where voting is your fundamental duty, you need to encounter a basic transaction cost of going from your home to the polling booth in order to perform your democratic duty.
Yes.
Now, I believe that online voting is a step which can be tried. It has to be first test case tried in one or a by-poll, particularly if it works in a by-poll, then it can be extended to an assembly election. But another important point, I believe the first reform which should happen is the one which you were mentioning in your introductory remarks, is that a lot of migrant laborers and individuals who work not in their domicile. So what you need is the phenomena is that suppose if I am a resident, if I am the voter of Indore and living in Delhi, I need to have a facility to vote in Delhi, and it should be counted as a vote in Indore. So I believe that first mobile or dynamic voting is a concept which you need to work towards, and that after that or in parallel to that is what you can look at online voting. I do believe there are certain other challenges to implement online voting at a pan-India level. The first step could be for sure is advocating this concept of dynamic voting, where registered voters working in some other constituency can still vote in that respected constituency.
Absolutely, and phase-wise step to digital voting. Aditya, you've just put together a story on online polls. Tell us what the IIT Madras, the experts over there, told you about what they are working on right now.
So, Sandeep, I spoke to the main founder of the technology. So he, along with his professor, who's the head of the mechanical department, they have devised a voting machine using the blockchain technology. So when we say blockchain, in a common way, if I have to make you understand, or the audience understand, blockchain is like writing on the stone. And so if any change on that stone is only possible if you break the stone or you get another stone. So that's how it's
safe. It's secure. It's secure.
And a blockchain is basically, it's connected to a lot of multiple computers, and it gets a lot of data points and a lot of other things. So what he told me in his conversation with me was that they had developed a prototype which they tested it on their campus for their student body election, and they were able to save a lot of logistics cost. It was an instant audit trail that they were able to see. And the voting was, the time for voting was reduced to minimal, actually zero. So after that they decided to present it to the Election Commission of India, and they kind of accepted it, but they wanted the CDAG, which is Center for Advanced Center for Development.
So it's still in a prototype stage. But are they seriously talking about it, say, in the 2029 elections, or as Pradeep mentioned, that it could be implemented in a by-poll? You want to test the technology before you actually implement it across.
So for now, what they've told me is that this should be tested in municipal elections or cooperative elections, so that we are rest assured before we scale it to a bigger level or a national level. And also there's a huge lot of investment that's required to do that, because we've got a DPI tech stack in place. So it is much easier for us to convert everything in blockchain, and incidentally the voting will also become secure.
Will be secure, exactly. And Pradeep, if you could just take us through this, as Aditya was mentioning here, the fact that the technology already exists. It's there in a nascent form. It's been tried out at the IIT Madras. They've run college elections actually with this, and they're fairly happy with the results. How would you implement it on a national level? Like you were mentioning, that could it be first to target the migrant voters, then you implement it in the by-polls, and then maybe, who knows, 2029 could be an all-electronic election, vote from wherever you are.
So I somehow do not believe that 2029 is where you can have that, ability of having the phenomena of voting from your home. Because let's understand, at this moment, even a foolproof technology like an EVM, not a technology, a voting machine like the EVM, which is an indigenous voting machine, which does not have any signal, which cannot be hacked, is still questioned by respected political players when they lose an election. So accepting that online voting and a blockchain technology will be accepted by cross political class will in the next 5 years, I believe is a very, very idealist target to achieve. What I think we should look at is, as my friend suggested, implement it in a municipal poll, implement not just in one municipal poll, but implement it in successive municipal polls. After that, I do believe that it will require cross consensus from all the political stakeholders. After that, the Election Commission has to invest that technology, get that concurrence. You can also see a situation where some petitions will be filed in the Supreme Court, even if the EC goes forward with it. So I think at least a 10-year horizon, 10 to 15-year horizon is what you can look at. If digital technology will be implemented. Now, you also need to give this safety and security to everybody in the country, that it cannot be, when you go for an online vote, there is no phenomenon of concept called as hacking or a bogus vote or a dual vote. So these are things which have to be addressed first. Then is when we can look at implementing online voting in a very serious manner. So as of right now, I do feel that if it is implemented in a foolproof manner in municipal poll, that is when we can look at taking this concept in an extremely serious manner. Because when you're speaking about India, you're talking about 95 crore voters, out of which roughly 60 to 65 crore vote, which is more than the population in US, UK, Europe, Mexico. It's a huge number.
Right, absolutely. But, like you were saying, the way to go would be to actually target those migrant voters. So you're not actually sitting at home and using a mobile phone to vote, but you are actually allowing migrants who are like, probably he votes in Chennai, but he's, based in Delhi. And he can vote in Delhi, he can cast his vote in Delhi. Where are we with that technology, Aditya?
So, there are two different concepts attached to when it comes to remote voting. One is mobile voting. When you use a mobile device to vote, that requires a huge number of authentication. Then only you'll be able to do that. Estonia is on the path of doing it, because right now they've been using a booth so that they are the protectors of your safety while you're voting. So the other thing is remote voting. Remote voting is like, so you will be able to vote online, but you got to go into a booth and then do that, so that your safety and the security is not jeopardized. So these are two different concepts. Estonia is a country which, so these guys, IIT guys, they actually have read their paper and kind of modified in as per our demographics, and that's what they are working on it.
Pradeep, you have a question.
So, just 2 points here, two small interjections. Point number one here, if we go forward with even physical remote voting, which is where you have polling booths for migrant laborers and those who are not present in their home constituencies, you will still see the voting percentage jumping up. Number two is that India, the voting percentage is succeeding comparatively much higher than if you compare to many developed countries. So we are the best, one of the best performing nations when it comes out to voting. Point number three, even when you look at the 63, 64, 65 voting percentage, a lot of it is to do with revision of your voter list. So I believe that if you implement this concept of even remote physical voting booths, you will see this voting percentage jumping from 65, 66 to at least more than 80%. This is where if you see in northeastern states, you have a voting percentage of more than 80%, because there the migrant population is significantly low. So rather than looking at online voting, I think we need to first implement this concept of remote physical booths. I think it will solve a lot of problems, because people on the ground in India, whether it's a migrant labor or even if a salaried class, are very, very aware about their democratic duty to vote.
Right, absolutely, and great closing comments for our discussion today on voting online. As Pradeep Bhandari mentioned, the fact that we should actually have remote voting booths. Probably that's the way to go forward, given the fact that we have a very large migrant population, 300 million, 400 million people. That's a lot of people, Aditya. That's the population of entire countries, probably entire Europe, who knows. But that's all we have this evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us, Pradeep Bhandari and Aditya Kaul. We'll be looking at that story very closely. Aditya Kaul's story, vote for online polls, his story on the IIT Madras's pilot project on getting Indians to vote remotely. It's a possibility, who knows, in the future.